Well, it is a Monday morning at 10 o'clock, and so it's time for, well, it's not what it says. It's not relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons. That was a couple weeks ago, and I actually did painting minifigs that are going to show up in our Dungeons and Dragons show. So, there. Well, I'd been away again. That seems to be happening. It has happened a lot since the spring. But I'm back now, and I don't think I have anything else planned for a while, anyway. I think for the rest of the year, actually. But right now, I'm back, and I'm trying to remember why I'm here and what I'm supposed to do. That's sort of, but almost not quite a joke. I put this out in front of me because this is reminding me what I'm supposed to be doing. The workbench here, my little 2.5, maybe almost 3 square feet of it that isn't taken up with other stuff. My highly sophisticated work surface piece of cardboard and so on is pretty much exactly as I left it, a week ago last Friday, which means that there's 14 bottles of paint and 6 bottles of wash, just cluttering it up, and that need to be put away. But putting those away doesn't make for good streaming. Of course, that's compared to, my other streaming, which is not all that great either. So I don't know, maybe I can just like reach up, grab a bottle, and stick it in the paint holder thing over there. So let me show you those. Yeah, I'm going to prognosticate here. Is that a word? I'm going to delay things a little bit before I get started, because as it says, what we're painting today is not painting. It is, I hope I don't break it, and you'll see what I mean eventually when I get around to it. But so I've got like that stack of paints there and some more over there that I used for the minifigs. Why are there so many? Well, there were 10 of them, and each beard was a different color, so I pulled out 10 different colors. That was, it was fun to do, but it now has made it mess. But they all, let me see if I can move this. Can I aim it? There's the thing I use to stir the paint. Paint bottle goes on there like that. And it rotates and vibrates and stirs up the paint. Why isn't this going where I want it to go? I've done this before. It worked. I don't know. And I wanted to show you these things that our DM made, but for some reason the cameras, I don't know. I'm just making you seasick, I guess. I can't show it to you. Anyway, they're really cool. They're made out of PLA, and the spools for the PLA sit on these posts that she printed, and then custom designed it so that there are holes of exactly the right size to hold these little paint bottles at a slight angle so that they're not dripping out or anything like that. And I wanted to show it to you, but the camera didn't move. Oh, well. Well, so these paints are just in the way, and depending on how things go, maybe I'll just try to put them away instead of trying to work on the model. But I don't know. I'm just going to babble today and move things a little bit out of the way so I've got some space to work in. I'm going back to the Apollo, and just as a reminder to everybody, I have actually completed a fair amount of this model. I've got the escape tower done. I've got the service module done. I've got the ascent stage. That's the part that shows here of the lunar module. That's completed. I've got the parts for the fairing all ready to be assembled. I just need to get the hinges on. And I'm delaying that until near the end because I don't have a good way to store this thing once it's put together. It's like 7 inches tall. So what I've got left is the descent stage of the LEM, which is under this. You can't see it in this picture. And then the command module. And the command module is this pile of parts. Okay. And these will be assembled into the command module. And yeah, and that will be the end of it once this is done. The command module, I don't know if you can see it or not, but the parts are, like all of the other parts, are very badly injection molded. Like if you look at this thing here, okay, it's got these little bits of plastic all around the edges where it either attached to the tree or, like in this case, they just oozed out through the sides of the mold. So there's all of that. The same thing is true here, and most of the parts are like that. So when I get around to this, which may be, it depends on if I break things today or not. If the stuff goes together, I should be able to finish the descent stage today. If it doesn't fit together, then I'll have to decide if I'm feeling like coordinated enough to do some really delicate filing, maybe sanding, I guess, delicate sanding to get the pieces to fit. And if I'm not up to that, then I'll begin cleaning up these parts. So I did some test fitting for this too, and there's like 4 pieces of the control panel here, and I'm not they don't fit together very well. It's really kind of a challenge. So when it comes to doing this, it'll be interesting. The other part about the control panel is, I showed you this before, it's really hard to see. There's really very, very light embossing, some raised surfaces that are supposed to be the control switches and stuff, which are almost but not quite like the real thing. That's going to be like, I'm going to try to paint it to look a little bit like the real control panel. Which is going to be quite a challenge. I'll probably end up having to do it a couple of times. This is how it's supposed to end up looking, with all those little switches and dials and things like that. So somehow or other, I'm supposed to make these little bits of plastic look like that. That'll be fun to watch. No. How much time have I wasted? Only 9 minutes. Oh, good grief. Okay, well, I guess we need to get on with it here. Yeah. These people, good, I just knocked a bunch over. Okay, so the fiddly bits I'm working with are these. These are all these things here, okay, are all very thin, very brittle pieces of plastic that are supposed to snap together so that the landing struts of the lunar module fold up like that. They fold underneath so that it fits into the fairing that held it when it was launched. And then they're supposed to fold out like this so that it can land on the moon. And I've got the parts prepped. I've got like a couple of pieces actually installed a little bit. Well, let's see what we've got. And this is the gold foil in which the lunar module is wrapped. That came out okay. It looks all wrinkly, but if you actually see a picture of the real lunar module, and I have one somewhere, but I don't know where it went. It got lost. Of course it did. It's even more wrinkly. So this gold foil went on there. And then I looked at the real lunar module, and most of the struts, the external struts and the landing pads, were wrapped in gold foil as well. So I did it because I had some extra. So, yeah, there. And so what's supposed to happen, just for example, I'll grab one of these. This is supposed to fit into a pad, okay? And then this little clip here is supposed to clip onto this so that it rotates. It doesn't, okay? It doesn't do that. This up here is supposed to clip on way up here, like this. Okay. And then this, which is clipped onto here, is supposed to attach to here. And then this whole setup is supposed to fold in and out. That's actually what it's supposed to do. I don't believe that is actually going to work. None of these clip-on things clip on. They don't, without like almost forcing it. So I'm very concerned about, since it's quite brittle, I'm very concerned about breaking it. This last bit, putting these on, is not that hard. If those little prongs there fit through these little holes, which it isn't doing, like in this particular case. So, yeah, I'm going to be doing a bunch of test fitting to see if these things, I don't know, they just don't. Okay, so I might have to do some little sanding down of the little prongs there so that they fit through the holes. These are slightly flexible, but if you bend them a little bit, just a tiny bit too much, they'll snap. How do I know that? Because I've done that more than once. Yeah, so there it is. That's the stuff that has to be done. I'm going to start I've been trying to decide for a while whether to install the rocket nozzle right away or wait until these are done. And in thinking about it, not on the stream, but like, nightmarish kind of thinking about it, just trying to relax. And then it's like this model comes to mind and it's, oh God, how am I going to get this to work? I'm going to put the rocket nozzle in first before all the rest of this, because once these are all together, the legs will be in the way, and putting this in very likely will be a problem. So if nothing else today, I'll cement this into place so that there will be something that will have been done. Right? Yay. Yeah. But I'm going to do one other thing first. I'm going to, according to the directions, these pads should be the very last thing to be put on, but they go on to the ends of these, and if all of these things are attached, it's very fragile, and this thing here it's just really likely to break. Something would break, you know? So I'm going to put this down so I don't mess things up. So the things I'm going to do first are the things that are most likely to not be a disaster. And that is to attach the pads to the ends of these things, these struts. And that'll be a little bit in the way when it comes to attaching the rest, but it's much less likely to end in tears. Okay, and just test fitting these to make sure they fit, and if they fit, then I put a little bit of adhesive in there. See, this one isn't fitting, whatever. Fits there. Hopefully this one will fit here. Otherwise I'll have to move them around. It's not fitting there. This one's kind of loose. I don't know what the deal is. There's always one, right? There's always a thing that doesn't work. There, that fits there. Looks like too big. This is going to be one of those harumphing days. I'm going to be making all sorts of sighs and oopses and stuff. So I guess we should, you all can just get prepared for that. I can get that on with a little bit of difficulty. I'm going to sand it down a little bit. I'm just going to make this thing a little smaller because the adhesive will hold it. But if there's difficulty getting it inserted, then there's a likelihood of breakage. If that made any difference. Yeah, that worked. Okay, it didn't take very much. There. So the sequence I'm going to use is to attach these. See how cool they are? I mean, they are kind of cool, and it looks good that they're wrapped in that gold foil. So those are the parts that show most. Is to put the pads on, and then get these parts attached into that little clip. Clip here. You can see immediately that my fingers aren't working, and if I do anything, if I just have to be careful, even that little bit of unintentional movement could snap this thing, and that would not be good. I haven't gotten one of these in yet, but these are supposed to rotate inside of this little, but they're not round. As you can see, it looks like they're like the part that gets in there is too big to rotate. So I'm afraid that if I get one of these actually assembled in there, if I actually get one of these in there, that it's not going to move, and then I don't know what I'll do because I don't know if I can get it back out again. And then this bit up here, after all of that is done, clips on up here. And these are really fragile. In fact, one of those was broken once already. So that's why I'm saying I hope I don't break it, because there's so many opportunities dealing with these little fragile bits of the landing strut to break them. I am really wanting to not take advantage of those opportunities to break. So we'll see. Hi. Oh, thanks for the first time chat. Thanks for joining in. I am working on the descent stage of the lunar module. This is the part that gets left behind on the moon. And I'm attempting to put together these very delicate, fragile pieces that don't fit to complete the landing gear. And so far, I haven't broken anything, but there is tremendous opportunity to do so. And I'm trying to get this together without breaking it. So we'll see how that goes. I was sort of demonstrating that after the pads are attached, I haven't attached them completely yet. They're not cemented in, they're just test fit. That this is somehow supposed to go in here, and it doesn't. So I'm gonna have to play around with these to get them on. And then this clip goes on the top. And then finally these go on some little prongs. And none of these things fit. None of them work. And so I'm going to be spending an awful lot of time just test fitting and delicately sanding and trying not to break things as I put them together. This is I don't know, whoever designed this just was evil. So I'm trying to do some things that don't involve breaking stuff right away, hopefully, and that is attaching these. I'll put some sort of adhesive in here, and stick them in, let the adhesive dry, and then these things here, I'll probably, while that cement is setting, I'm going to be test fitting these. They're supposed to go on like this. Okay. I don't know if you can see that. It kind of does, but not as far as they're supposed to. Little posts are too big for the holes on some of these. And I don't want to bespoke match one to another, because just keeping track of the parts would be a real problem. So I'm going to try to get them so that they universally fit. So that if one fits on one, it'll fit on the rest. I don't know, I suppose I am going to do that. I'm going to put little pieces of tape on these and number them 1 through 4, or maybe A through D. Because if I can get them to test fit, I just want them to fit. Okay. And that's the way that's going to be. because that's going to be the last part after all of the rest of this is done. There's going to be all sorts of, there'll be like two very delicate attachment points on each one, and then they clip on to these posts, these little prongs here, and I just want that to be just smooth as all, just done. So it's not only getting each one to attach, but it's like making sure that it's oriented correctly, because one side might be different than the other. Okay, so if I get it on there like that, and then it gets flipped over some reason, which could very well happen. Okay, well, I'm starting to question. I thought this was going to be an easy thing to build. That's why I kind of saved it for this period of time, but it's turning out not to be. Okay, how many use some of this model cement? It's got a fine tip applicator, and what I will do is hopefully get the tip into the little hole there, get a little cement in there, stick the part on, and then it will set. In the meantime, then I'll be messing around with those. The cement dries in the little tube. Of course it did. Somewhere there's a tiny piece of wire, little wire, that is used to open that opening. Or if I were better sort of thing, this would have been done by now. I mean, this whole stream, I just snap all those pieces together. But I am being extremely cautious because I am really quite good at messing things up. Okay. Take my glasses off. The other disadvantage of being ancient is things like that. Wearing trifocals. I'm guessing there's cement in there now. I gave up on trifocals because I couldn't find, when older people are always going like this when they're trying to focus on something, it's because they've got trifocals and they're trying to find the little spot on the lens, the little band on the lens that actually focuses. If there's any cement on there or not. I guess so. It has a really distinct odor, right? Model building by scent. They put. Yeah. I have the same issue. Mine is, I'm the opposite of most people my age. I can see close up, but not far away. Most people my age need like reading glasses so that they can see close up. That's why they hold newspapers way out, like way away from them. Because they can't see close up. They need reading glasses, or they have to hold things far away. Yes, that is, the angle is a little bit off. That it's not going to matter that much. I don't know. This thing barely fit in there before I put the cement in, and now it's it's kind of wiggling around. like I said, I'm kind of the opposite of that in that I can see close up, but I can't see far away, which is why I take my glasses off so I can see close up. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to find the little spot on the glasses that focused at this distance. Anyway, I hope this actually holds. Sometimes it actually doesn't. Sorry. See if I can line them up. Yeah, boy, this does not portend well for the rest of this assembly. I'm lining them up so that I can see if the angle of the strut is the same on each one. This one kind of isn't. There has to be a better way to do this. Okay. Well, you just saw an example of why I'm concerned about the rest of this. I mean, just moving my finger from one spot to another. I mean, that's all it was, as I just moved my finger and I knocked them over. And if it's going to be that way, if I can't do this, like line these up without knocking them over all the time, can you imagine what it's going to be like trying to get these little struts attached to each other in ways that they're not going to? I mean, they don't fit. But I'm trying to get the angle of the struts pretty much the same. It didn't matter that much, but the only thing that would be different would be that the pad, the landing pad itself, once these are assembled, would be a little different angle than each other. They're at the four corners. They won't be right next to each other, but, you know, it'll still be noticeable. I don't know what kind of skill the people who do these, you know, display models, they would take this and everything would just be perfect, you know. The foil would be crumpled just right, and the angles of all the struts would be exactly the same. The little bits here would fit. I have no idea how they're able to do that. So, having said that, you know immediately that that's not what this is. This is not a how to do master modeling level modeling show. This is a how to make it. Yeah, it's going to look pretty good. It looks pretty good. It's kind of like you can do this at home. You know, this is you can do this at home kind of show. It's like if you're not a master modeler and you haven't been doing a lot of modeling, and you want your model to look pretty good, but you don't have all sorts of tools and steady hands and, you know, the kind of equipment and ability that a master modeler, the one who would make a display model that would look perfect under a magnifying glass. Okay. If you're not that kind of person, this show is probably for you, because I'm not that kind of modeler, and I'm showing you how to make something that looks okay. You know, it came out pretty well. Look at them. They're looking okay. But they're not super perfect or anything like that. Okay, now, well, I've got them nicely lined up, and they look like they're nicely lined up, and they're in the way. Just absolutely in the way of what I want to do next. Well, I guess I need to move them. The next thing I'm going to be doing next is these need to attach to the ends of these pins. These little pins are supposed to go through the holes. Okay. And if you can see what's happening here is that it doesn't. So either the hole's too small or the pin's too big. Or both. Depends on, you know, the okay. And I have to do everything with incredible delicacy, because these things are fragile. They're very, very brittle. The plastic, it gives hardly at all. Okay. The landing struts are now out of the way. I'm going to move this over here. So what I'm doing now is test fitting the very last thing that's going to be done if I can get these to come together. And that is that these need to, almost did that. I don't know if you saw that, I moved my left hand and I bumped it into this. And if I bumped it a little bit harder, it would have pushed down on it and probably snapped it. I have to just watch. I have to be careful about every single little movement here. Just amazing how things can go badly at this stage. So what I think I'm going to do here is, these don't have to be a tight fit, okay? Because what's holding them on is that this little bit of plastic is just supposed to clip on there. I don't want to mess around with the pins, really, unless I see that there's a real problem with one. So I'm going to get a little micro drill. Maybe I'll even put something away here, like this. And I'm going to remount the, this is a little too small. One of these little tiny drill bits will be just right. You don't want it to be too big. Maybe one of these won't be just right. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Maybe actually this one might. It's already in a handle. This one's way too big. This is too big. These are too small. What else have I got? They don't have any sizes on them. It's hard to tell. That's even smaller. No, this is as close as it gets. So I'm going to just kind of rub around on the inside. There's probably paint in there. There's probably paint in the little hole. Yeah. This might take it out. Yeah, like this one. This one is small. That one wasn't fitting on the little pins. So just having done that little bit, I'm going to see. I almost did it again. Just banged into it. See that? It goes on there. This one doesn't quite. What if I switch them? Oh, yeah. See, that goes on really nicely. So I'm going to do a compromise. I talked about labeling these, and it was like, well, what if they got flipped over? I'm going to get this one. I'm going to get this one to fit either way. That fits really well. So that hole is good. And that hole is pretty good on this side too. This hole is still a little bit too small. So if I can get this one to fit either direction, the alternative is to fit it on all four of them. I'm going to mess with that. I'm just not going to do that. So this will go on really nicely. So I'm going to use this tape. This is modeling tape instead of painter's tape, and it's less likely to pull some paint off. I don't want to mess up the paint. I'm fishing for scissors. I got these little bitty baby scissors. And why am I using these? Because that's what was there. This is taking so long. An A. I don't apologize for that. You know, that this is just not moving along very well at all. It's moving very slowly, and I haven't even started doing the difficult stuff yet. You can imagine. This is a well thought out plan to use up all the streams this week and accomplish nothing. Okay, so A fits there. Here. Let me just, since I got the tape out, I'm just going to do all of them. And you're going to say, I know you haven't fit them yet. And I'll say that's okay, because whichever one I label B is the one that's going to go where B is. And so on. Sometimes I do these things and it turns out to have been a brilliant idea, because it would have been awful unless I had. You know, if I hadn't done them, then something really messy and difficult would have happened. Okay. And sometimes I do this and it just turns out to be a bad idea. In this case, I think it's a good idea, because there's no guarantee at all that any of these other struts would fit A. You just wouldn't know it. I mean, they might after they've been modified. Okay, well, I probably should have fished for better scissors, but I didn't. But this way, at least I know that that part will fit on that strut, and that the rest of these will as well. So if I can get them put together, you know, without breaking them, the very, very last step, attaching them to the base there, the bottom strut, at least then I'll know that the very last step will work. It'll be okay. After I get them to fit. This is going to be B. Let's see what I'm dealing with in a start here. Yeah, that needs to come out. Needs to be done a little bit. Yeah, and this hole is very small. You can almost see that it's small to begin with. I need to hold it just right too. If I held it back here, you can't see what I'm doing. If I held it back here, the stresses on it could break it. So I'm trying to hold it. Trying to not have a problem. After I get these to fit, I'm going to cement in the nozzle, because that will be an accomplishment. Yay. It's good to accomplish something. Okay, that fits on that side. Not bad. Take a little bit more off. You know, fitting it to both pins because after I attach it to those struts, I don't know what orientation it's going to end up in. And it's one thing to identify it's supposed to attach. It's another to get the orientation right at the same time. Clearly this pin is a little bit big. Make a hole a little bigger. It's the safer thing to do. Trying to sand one of these down without snapping that whole apparatus is probably the better part of valor. Probably a bad idea is basically pretty much what it is. Okay, that's fitting on there pretty well now. B. As I'm doing this, I'm thinking ahead to the next steps. These need to clip into the leg struts, and then the leg struts need to clip onto here. Okay, so I think if I clip this on first. No, it's pretty much out of the way. This is way out of the way. It shouldn't. What I was thinking of was getting the leg struts, the top of this, to clip onto here first. And then taking it off and then labeling it to, but I'm thinking that's a really bad idea. Okay. So I'm going to, it's just not going to, I'm not going to do that. That's a bad idea because if something goes on, it's not coming off. So those are going to clip on. They clip on, if you can see these way down here. The top clips up here. I think if they're flopping around, which they should, if they're just flopping around, that should be okay. It shouldn't be in the way. I can see right off that these holes are too small. That they are. This one's not too bad. Those pins must be small because the holes are actually small. Okay, I'm going to move the camera because what I'm doing is I have to hold it here. Otherwise, I can't hold it. So I move the camera. That's the nice thing about not having a studio. I just have this little Ring camera. I can move it around. It's on a stand that moves it up and down and rotates, and all sorts of different directions. That's very nice. It fits nicely. Oh yeah, on both sides. Very good. This one actually behaved really well. That's a portent of disaster. That went okay. So then what? Then it doesn't. I like the way this ink smears all over the place. It's a nice feature. Look at how off center that is. Great. So this is a making a model, and it sometimes things work, sometimes things don't, because I'm not a master modeler, a master painter. But having decided about a month ago that that's okay, that the nature of this particular stream, as far as model making goes, is for the every person. I haven't really built models before, or I have, and I've never really, I just, like when I was a kid, right? You just cement them together and put the decals on and hang them from the ceiling, and everything's fine. But if you want it to look pretty good, as opposed to, it's okay. The kinds of things I'm doing here make your model look, it's pretty good. And the final secret is to not let people get too close to it. And definitely don't look at it through a magnifying lens. Then you definitely have an issue. Okay, so these are matched up. What I know now is that if I, at some point, if I haven't broken anything, D will fit on D, A will fit on A, that sort of thing. Put this stuff away a little bit. Useless bits. Look at me, I'm cleaning up. We're moving things around anyway. This back here, and I'm going to cement this in. Seems to fit pretty well. This is a piece that I can't mess up too terribly much. But here, this is one of the things I did. I'll just show it to you because it's like, this is the difference between, it's pretty good and whatever, is there's dust in there now. Great. If you look inside, it's black. Okay. And it wasn't. The plastic is white. Okay. And so the thing I did that I think was pretty good was, I don't know if anyone ever would, but if you look inside a rocket nozzle, you don't want to see white. That wouldn't make sense. So before I assembled this, I painted the inside black so that when you look through the rocket nozzle, it's black. So that was one of those. I think that was kind of a clever thing to do. But then there was a lot of what there was shaping the plastic, and plastic dust got in there, so now there's white speckles. So I'm gonna see if I can just take this cotton swab and they can move. No. So it's black, but there's white spots. So I'm unhappy about that. And so I'm going to touch up those little white spots. This is like one of those actually pretty unnecessary kind of things that one can do. There isn't really any necessity to do this at all, but I'm looking at it and I'm unsatisfied with that because those little white dots have appeared on my otherwise matte black surface. The helpful thing about that is that it gives me a reason to continue to delay doing the dangerous parts of assembly. I don't need very much paint, so I'm just going to. No, this is dumb. I am almost doing a dumb thing here. What I need to do is I need to be away from the screen. I wasn't planning to paint anything, but now you're going to see some, I hope, relaxing painting of little white dots with some black paint. Oh, wait. Accidentally, by just doing that, I got enough black paint on the tip of this brush to cover up the white spots. Serendipity. Now I need to clean it. And I don't have any water to clean it with, so I'm just going to use this. A little bit of black paint on here now. Yeah. Got quite a lot of paint on there. I didn't see that I was picking up any, but I got quite a lot of black paint on it, huh? You never know what's going to happen on whatever this is. Tyson Dungeons. Well, this is pretty good. So far, I have spent like over an hour, and I've stuck pieces of tape with A, B, C, and D on it. And I glued struts onto pads. Yeah, that seems like an hour's worth of work, doesn't it? Let me check to see. Yeah, make sure that they're sticking. I'm going to make sure that they're adhering. Well, now they're flopping all over the place. Okay, I did that thing. So to attach this, I'm not going to use this cement because it's hard to apply. I'm going to take this cement, which is pretty much the same thing, and I banged it into the box. And that's just the kind of thing. I have to just absolutely watch where my hands go all the time. Because if I bump one of these too hard, it's going to snap. So this has a little brush in it. And so I can take the brush and get cement on the inside of this opening. And I want to put the cement on the inside of this opening and not on the nozzle, because when I push the nozzle in, it's going to push the cement. And if I put the cement on the nozzle, it could well up. Okay, if I put it there, it could push up, and then it could create a flaw. It could dissolve the paint and become visible. And what I'm hoping is that there's enough, that it grips. Okay, so that's going to hold now. And now the rocket nozzle um, is there, and that this rocket is now ready to land on the moon. The engine in the descent stage was pretty revolutionary. There, rockets. Since I grew up during the space race, I learned a lot of this stuff as it was happening. Is rocket engines were either on or off. So, I mean, they were either producing maximum thrust, however much the engine was able to put out, or none. And the way the speed of things like rockets was controlled was by how long the rocket burned. So, given a certain amount of thrust for a certain amount of time, pushing so much weight, and the weight varied, the arithmetic involved in this was pretty sophisticated and complex, if you think about it. So I'm going to digress here a little bit while I contemplate the next step. Yeah, it was really pretty complex because the rocket put out a certain amount of thrust, and you knew what that was, and it was pretty constant. It varied a little bit. And it was pushing a certain amount of weight, the weight of the rocket, but the weight of the rocket changed over time because it was burning fuel, so it kept getting lighter. So the same amount of thrust was moving more weight, and then less weight and less weight and less weight and less weight. And so the calculation had to be, we ended up using calculus, right? Not just arithmetic, because you had a variable that was changing at a pretty predictable rate. Okay, at least it was that, in that the rocket was burning a certain amount of fuel and oxidizer every period of time, millisecond. We'll just call it that, milliseconds, not even seconds, but little bitty pieces of time, milliseconds. And so the engineers knew how much fuel and oxidizer was being used and how much that weighed, and so what the weight change was over time. So I'm not a math whiz. I forgot everything I learned in high school and college, but I do know that calculus would, whatever it is, dt, right? Okay. The equation changes over time at a predictable rate. And so if you want to achieve a certain velocity, that's another factor that you put into this. How fast is this going given the thrust and the change in the weight and the amount of time? You can calculate how long, down to a fraction of a second, the rocket engine needs to burn. That was a long digression, but essentially what happened was that definitely the solid fuel rockets, they weren't used in space exploration. They were not used until the space shuttle, but the solid fuel rockets just burned, and the liquid fuel rockets were pretty much the same. The engine was either on or off, and it was either at full thrust or not. But you couldn't do that landing on the moon. Okay, I mean, potentially you could by just giving little bursts of the firing of the rocket, but it was much, But when you think about coming down and you turn it off and you don't slow down okay, it's a lot easier to do that if you can have a throttle. So that is, you're coming down, for example, down to the surface of the moon. I'd turn this over if I wasn't going to break something, to throttle back on the engine. Okay. And so this was one of the very first variable thrust engines that was put to use in a pretty hazardous situation, because there's two people inside of the ascent stage, which is attached to the top of this when it came down. So that was I think that was really amazing that they were able to do that. Get a variable thrust engine. So one of those breakthrough kinds of things. Okay, this, I don't need this anymore because the next step is to attach these bits to those bits. And I can only put it off so long, okay, before I need to actually get around to doing it. Moving these bits out so I can take this big bit without breaking anything and putting it over there. Put it over there in the box. I'm not sure where I want the camera to be yet. So I take one of these, it doesn't matter which one. And what's supposed to happen is that without breaking anything, I'm supposed to be able to get this into that clip. I can't push it on the ends because that would snap it off. I have to practice holding this some way. Yeah, the pads are a little bit in the way, but I haven't done one of these. I sort of practiced a little bit, but there's a really good chance that by pushing this in, I could snap that little hook off, and that would definitely be a serious disaster. Now, some of the gold foil got in the way there. So I don't know if you can see it, but when I wrapped the gold foil around it, some of it got on the inside here. And that makes it smaller. And that makes it, if it's smaller, especially the opening here, it makes it harder to get that thing into the clip. So I'm going to try to get the gold foil out of the inside of this thing without making it. Yeah, you're going to, like I said, you're going to hear that sound more than once. The gold foil to stay on the outside. Okay, that stuff's supposed to cut pretty easily. Okay. And this is supposed to be sharp. So it should, okay, it did that. It did something. That bit of gold foil on the outside. This is just taking forever. I have to think of something quasi entertaining to talk about while this is going on, because I haven't done this part before, and it's actually kind of tense. I have to admit that getting that to fit into here and seeing that it really just doesn't. You know, you do one thing to make something look okay, like putting the gold foil on, but then it gets in the way of something else. And it is what it is, right? If I can get one of these in, then at least I know it's possible. But there's really no way to put a little bit of pressure. To just say I really am not sure what I'm getting into here in terms of how this is going to work, or if it's going to work. There's no give on that hook. It's like one of the most solid pieces. It's very heavy. And somehow or other, that thing is supposed to go inside of it, and it looks like it's too big. And so I really am not, and then what I really would hate to have happen, and it could, is that I get it in, and then it doesn't rotate. Okay. And then it doesn't rotate because this part's too big. Don't know if it will or not. Yeah, sorry for going really quiet there. It's like it's almost, but not quite. Like it goes 2/3 of the way in, and then it just sort of stops. So I'm not quite sure. I don't want to force it. I think what I'm going to do, mess up the foil too much. That will be an easy fix if it needs to be. I think. I'm going to. I'm going to try sandpaper. Sorry about this. I have been like anxious about this bit ever since I saw the parts. Okay. I'm going to make these a little smaller. I'm going to rub the paint off for one thing. It isn't going to show. It should be okay inside. I'm going to make it smaller on all dimensions. Using fine sandpaper, I'm not doing much. I could use a file, but I think it would cut off too much plastic too quickly. I'm actually going to round off the edges as well. Because it's rectangular and it's supposed to rotate. So if it's a little rounder and less rectangular, I think that will be a good thing as well. The other thing I can do, but I'm not going to, is I could try to, make the opening of that clip a little bigger. But I don't want to do that because I think that would well, it would just be it would mess things up a little too much. Let me see if this will go on. Not understanding why it goes on like 80% of the way and then it sticks. Nothing in the way of it. What's keeping that last little bit from going in? I don't know. The back end of it, for some reason, doesn't want to go through the end of the clip. Pair will be at the end. Don't. It does rotate. Okay, not well, but it does. So one of these is done. I mean, in the sense that at least that part is attached, and it can only go on one way. Okay, so I didn't get it on backward. So let me just grab this. The way this will work, just as an example, is that this will clip on here, and then those bits will clip on here, and then don't touch anything. Okay, so eventually the next part is going to get that top part to clip on. Once that's clipped on, I know that these will go, well, this one's D, so it will go on here. But I got one of them on, and it rotates. That is, it doesn't seem like much, okay, but it actually is sort of miraculous. There's miracle number one. Okay. Well, the process here is going to be just as tedious, is to get remnants of the foil out of the way here, especially under the clip. Some foil repair on this one. That's going to show on the outside. I'm going to want to put a little piece of foil around it once I get this attached. Okay, just like right around here. And I'm going to do the same thing with this. Is I'm going to get all the paint off of it and round off the corners and make it thinner. Yep, a little bit tedious, but I don't know any other way to do this without potentially making a huge mess. But what I do know with one, since one was successful, is that especially rounding off the corners made a difference in terms of the rotation, because when I rotated it once it was in there, I could feel it catching on the corners. So it was a square peg in a round hole. Kind of a joke about that, right? But it is what it is. It's a square peg in a round hole, and making it a round peg it just helped. It worked better. I thought I would be much further along today than I am, but that's a recurring thing on this stream, is that since I'm doing everything for the first time, and not and the part's not fitting very well, as you can see. Yeah, things just take a while. This is supposed to be the same thing. This is supposed to, just like the other one, clip in there. I have to be really careful not to get impatient. Okay. I do not want to get impatient. Need to be very, very slow and careful. Well, I'm really messing up the foil on this one. That's going to be, I'm going to be doing some foil repair for this. Getting hung up just there on the last couple of bits, the last micromillimeter. Slow down. Slow everything down. Didn't break it. That's the thing. What I'm going to do, push this down to here, around it, and then I'm going to take a small piece of foil and wrap it around the top. It's going to be a digression, but I'm going to do that now so that I don't forget. Seriously, you don't. This really is quite stressful for me. So I'll apologize for the huffing and the puffing and the whatevering as I do this, because the opportunity for something going wrong is just so significant. Okay, this will turn out to be A, because that's the label on it. Just even putting them back in the boxes. Go. I'm going to save that one for last because I need to fit something else on that as well. Well, thank you for bearing with me on this as I try to get these parts fit. I keep saying it's just they just don't, and so it's been it's hope for the best here. That's all I can do is hope for the best. And 2 for 2. It's always the last one, though. That's the scariest. Okay. Always this is going okay kind of situation, and then it's not. So I need to stay focused as I'm doing this, especially as I get through these next couple. And then at the very end, I'm sitting here thinking, these skinny little struts. Okay, so I know on the real lunar module, they were made out of, I don't know, probably aluminum or something, maybe even titanium. Okay, because they had to be very strong and very lightweight. But in this case, they're made out of crappy plastic. That is brittle and ill-formed. So I can tell you for sure that the real Apollo didn't. There's just there's like a little piece of plastic hanging down on the hook here, and it's going to be in the way. It potentially could be a problem. Okay, take another one of these and do the same sort of sanding on it, knowing that the inside of it that side, I'll call that the inside, needs to get a special attention because it seems to be resistant to going in. I'm trying to be careful with the sanding. I don't want to mess up the paint. Okay, the paint touch-up. I've had problems with this gold paint before. I don't know if you saw it. If you look on YouTube, many episodes ago, with this, there was a flaw on one side of the bottom here where the paint had just kind of, I don't know, it touched something. And so it had a rough texture. And I thought, well, I'll just sand it smooth with some extremely fine grade sandpaper and respray it. And I successfully sanded it, and then I resprayed it, and the paint dissolved itself, and the whole thing alligatored, and I had to remove the paint from the whole bottom. I spent an entire stream doing nothing but removing the paint from the entire bottom, and then I had to respray the entire piece. I lost the equivalent of the time for an entire stream fixing an oops that was created by trying to fix a small flaw. And that's happened to me before, where I tried to do some detail that was, a nice thing to do, but not necessary. And it resulted in a major oops. What I'm saying is that I'm a little reluctant to touch up with the gold paint because it sometimes dissolves itself instead of just covering the spot, which is the point, just cover the spot. It mars the surface of a significant piece. You would think by now that I have figured out the best way to hold these parts. I would have thought so too, but I haven't. So each one is like a new thing. Three out of 4. Okay, this one is a little different because it's got these on it. These hold the ladder. Looks like the ladder can go either way, and I want to make sure that the ladder fits on before I go any further because it's one of the last things to be attached. Yeah, it just gets cemented on. And same thing here. There's foil that got on the, and a little bit on the inside here. Getting out of the way. Too much. Be very careful to not have any premature celebration here. treat this one as delicately as the first one. Sip of coffee here. And I'm not sure I need any more caffeine at the moment. Very glad that these are ambidextrous. Okay. And it doesn't matter which orientation they go in, because if it did, that would be bad. I'd probably have them all backward. Yeah, this would be a good time for music to be playing. One of these years, it might come back. Sorry for being quiet. I'm just so far both relieved and concerned. I'm relieved that 3 out of the 4 are done. I'm concerned that 4 out of 4 are not done. Yeah, that's just the kind of thing that happens, is that, I'm holding it, and like one of the easiest things in the world to do is just hold on to something, and then I don't. So the next parts are actually just as potentially disconcerting as this, in that these are supposed to clip on to things on the top, but the thing to which it clips is like half the diameter of this. And so there's a real opportunity for breakage there. And if one of those snaps, I have no idea how it could possibly be repaired. There's none at all. So I haven't done one of those before either. I'm not sure how that will go. Well, like the rest of this, will happen when it happens. This one's warped. Nice, huh? They rotate. Yeah, they're there. The 4 of these have these parts on. So the next part is, this is delicate stuff, right? These sitting on the nozzle, that's right. Okay, that's okay. This is really kind of hard to see, but this clip needs to go on a tiny little bit. But it went on, but I didn't. Okay, it was the wrong one. No, it was even the right one. It's C. This is C. No, this is A. Okay. Well, I know it's possible because one of them just clipped on. Let's see what happens. So this is supposed to clip on. There's foil on the inside. That's not a helpful thing. This is C. This is C. It did. It clipped. And then this will rotate and attach there. Do that until they're all on. This is B. I have to be really, really careful. I almost need to move this over. Being careful to do this because each of these is bespoke fit for the next thing. Gonna go on. Make sure that none of this is weight bearing except for the rocket nozzle. Make it too small, but it didn't go on, so just take a little bit off. I can tell that as this goes along, it's going to become more difficult because everything else is in the way. It's take too much off, it'll fall off. If I don't take enough off, it's not going to fit. There. Okay, now I've got two of these danglies on here that are going to be in the way. Which one is this? This is A. It tangled up on the inside. And then the last one better be D. It better be. No, I got them wrong. I can't. How did I do that? Man. Okay, I'm going to see if these fit. If not, I'll modify them later. Yeah, okay. Well, but I don't know. How in the world? How in the world could I have screwed that up? I can't tell letters. I can't tell letters. Okay. Now, all of these things, see, they're all dangly. They attach here and here. And I guess I can start putting them on. I need to take these tapes off. I'm going to put one on. And then okay, I need another hand. Everybody out there, give me a hand. Okay. This is how that's supposed to work. It folds. Holy cow. It actually works. Look, it actually does. I am amazed. Just shocked. What's that? Don't tell me it's so warped it's not going to work. Okay, well, it works. I want that tape to come off. The torsion and tendon. There it is. It's on my thumb. Is this one not moving? Where is it stuck? Everything's rotating. Stand. Of course, something like this would happen. What the hell? And these move freely. It was just extended a little too far. Hey, look, it folds up. and then they fold out. Okay, this, I'm really a little concerned about this, but somehow or other, these are actually supposed to support the weight. It landed on the moon. Okay, the last things to be done are to put the ladder on the one with the brackets. Which one is it? Where is it? Oh, there. Duh. No. Okay, I really screwed up here. The ladder has to go there. These two need to be reversed. Man. Go through all of that, right? Just all of that. And then find out that it didn't. So now I have to do two of these very delicate things again. Am I ticked off or what? Am I? Okay. The thing was, this is where the ladder, the platform goes. It attaches to these little holes. And the ladder has to be where the platform is. Wow. Okay. So there's always something. There's multiple opportunities for things to go badly wrong. And that, just relax. Slow down. Let's slow down here. Done it before. Can do it again. This is the one with the brackets. It goes here. Stem them. And land the limb again. Okay. Boy, these are so delicate. When I'm done with this, I'm going to be putting this in a box and never touching it again. All right. The ladder, this box is now a thing in the way. Just have to be careful to not put any weight on this. The ladder attaches here, like that. I'm going to, I really should take a break. What did I do here? Should I get this done? Sometimes I come back from break and my focus is really shot, but I'm thinking that I should take a break because parts of my body are saying it's time to take a break. And I think, even though this isn't compared to the rest of this, not that difficult. It's really easy. I could get like cement splattered all over the place. I could bump into something. So these last two bits go on here, and the module will be done. And then I need to store it somewhere, put it in a box. And I'm not going to show it. I'm not going to touch this again for a while. So after I take a break and I come back and put the ladder and the platform, these two pieces just attached, I'll probably use these different cements. I'll touch these little holes here for the platform, because that's the only place it attaches, is just there. And put the cement in the holes, because you can see if I put it on the prongs, see me moving it around, that would be spreading cement everywhere. If I put it in the holes, oh, good thing I'm testing this. This prong is too big. Okay, I'm going to stop messing with this. I'm going to take a break, come back, cement these on. I think I'll use the brush cement on here and here and here and here. And then store it. Put it somewhere. And then the rest of the stream, I'll be starting to work on fixing, I'll call it that, the parts of the command module. So, thanks for watching so far. Nothing broke. I hope I don't break it. I still have opportunities to break things, just to let you know that that's still there as an opportunity. But I'm really hoping that I will be successful in attaching the last bits and storing this safely, never to be seen again until sometime later. What I really should do is take the ascent stage and attach it to this. But I'm not going to do that today, because it doesn't fit on there really well and requires a little bit of pressure. And if I'm not holding it just right, I could push down on these, and you can just see that a little bit of pressure on any one of those legs could just break something. But it looks pretty good. I'm going to show you see if I can bring this down. See how the foil, putting the foil on these struts and the landing pads, really, yeah, it's pretty decent. So we'll just look at it there. I will be back in anywhere between 20 and 40 minutes. Okay, and finish these bits up. Find a box, put it in a box, and begin working on the command module. So thanks, everybody. I'll be back in a bit. Well, as usual, I eventually come back from break. Wow, sorry. That was longer than it should have been. But I'm back, and I'm going to attach the ladder there, these brackets, and then attach that, and then do my best to put this somewhere, like move it. And then what I'm likely to be doing after that is saying what I'm likely to be doing is saying several times. And then I'm going to start prepping the pieces for the command module. And what I mean by that is fixing as many of the obvious flaws in the molding process as I can. Hopefully this ladder can go on either way. Can get it lined up right. Yeah, to make sure it's not the like even. Yeah. Okay. And then these little prongs go in these tiny little holes here. Yeah. To use this cement. Hopefully, just get a drop of cement in each of those little holes, and that should be enough to hold it. And then I'm going to put this somewhere. Put it here on the, so I can move the paper towel instead of moving it. All right, so there's the ladder and the platform. The lunar module is now complete. That's the descent stage. The ascent stage is in a box over there somewhere. And at some point, I might put them together. I'm not sure. I am going to set this over to the side. Get these paints out of here. They're really in the way. Of course, every place else is in the way. Just put them over here. What I'm trying to do is not bang anything against anything that's going to be fragile and breakable, which is most of what's out here right now. Well, thanks for, yeah, the break was longer than it should have been. I apologize for that. I wanted to get something to eat, and I did. This box now is pretty much empty. All I've got in here are just sitting down in the command capsule astronauts. I think I might play with these a little bit. The real astronaut helmets did not have any lining around it, but no, I don't know if I'm going to mess with that or not. The ones in the box top, they painted the rim around the face. Just, I don't know, it was kind of like a cosmetic kind of thing, I guess. Oh, great. Huh. Yeah, look at it, and right there is this patch of paint from something else that needs to be painted over. What? Why is it? On all of them, No, I did that on purpose. Duh. It's not a spot. There was like some sort of attachment or something there, and I painted them all that way. This is the Walking on the Moon one. I painted moon dust on its legs. I might put a little bit more on just to make it a little darker up in front. I'm not sure. But this guy came out okay. The spacesuit is not authentically designed. There's supposed to be connections like on here. On the inside the capsule suit, there's connections. These blue and red things are connections for various attachments, hoses for cooling and heating and things like that. And they're only on one side on the sitting down astronauts. They put them on both. On the Walking on the Moon, they're on both sides, and there aren't any at all. So, go figure. Anyway, this box now is kind of superfluous and in the way. So I'll just put it so it's in the way somewhere else. These instructions are now complete. That's done. So in terms of this is done. This is done. Both of these parts are done. These parts are painted, and they're ready to be hinged when I have a place to store them. And then all that's left is this bit out of this entire stack. You know, if you look at it, this entire stack, that's the only part that really counts. And that's the part that took the astronauts out and brings them back. And so there's a whole set of instructions now for putting that together. That's the interior of it. And then there's more interior, and then there's some windows that need to be cut and put on, and the whole thing gets stacked up like this. This is going to take a long time to do. I just will have to say ahead of time. Part of it is little things like getting these windows. They're not like most models, a piece of clear plastic that's molded to fit. It's a pattern, and they need to be cut out of what is essentially the top of a carry-out container. And the instrument panels that I showed earlier have this really very light embossing, barely any raised surface at all. That's supposed to represent the instrument panel, but doesn't. Not very well at all. So I'm going to take some time and do my best to try to replicate as much of the instrument panel as I can with a very, very fine-tipped brush. And I might have to like do it once and then, I don't know, maybe prime it over again and start again. So yeah, I'm going to follow the assembly instructions, because otherwise this stuff doesn't fit, doesn't work together very well at all. But eventually that will get done, and then the whole thing will get done, and then I'll show everybody everything, and then I'll move on to the next piece. So now I'm going to be starting to work on the command module. I'm going to be doing some filing and sanding for the rest of the stream, and maybe I'll end a little early, maybe not. Depends on how this goes, I guess. But I will take the extra piece of foil. I'm going to actually put this in the box that I'm not using anymore, so it's out of the way. Excuse me. This always happens, always does. After break, I come down, and it feels a little bit colder, and my nose starts to drip. And then when it drips back, and then I get some post-nasal drip and some coughing. All of these pieces have problems, okay? Sometimes they're relatively minor, like this, which is part of the nose cone. There's just pieces of plastic here that are there because that's where it was attached to the tree. And those just need to be filed down and then sanded off. There's a discontinuity there. That's supposed to be flat, and it's not, so I'll sand that down. and the edges are rough. So there's that. There's this, all sorts of flashing sticking out in various and sundry places that need to be carefully sanded down. Just all of them. They all have stuff. And it's been that way since I shouldn't say since the beginning. It doesn't really make sense. All of the pieces have issues. It's kind of amazing considering, everything else, how small the command module is compared to the other pieces. It's like this, even compare it to the descent stage or the ascent stage, which sits on top of it. The ascent stage is bigger than the command module. And there were 2 astronauts in it. Of course, part of that is because it had to have a rocket engine and fuel and stuff on the inside, right? That was all part of it. So that was, that explains part of the reason why. But touching that. Okay, the ladder is okay the way it is. Why do I keep messing with it? I don't know. Okay. So the implement of destruction I need here, I need a needle file for the big pieces, and then sandpaper of various grits. And I've just got a whole pile of partially used stuff here that I'm going to use. It's like 600 grit for the major shaping, and then depending, since it's mainly just edges, I shouldn't have to worry about polishing it very much, but I might with the really fine stuff. Well, let me start with the heat shield. Okay. The heat shield is not authentic in that the real one had like a honeycomb surface on it with the ablative material, and it didn't have these little prongs. Definitely not those little prongs, but this one does, so that it can stand. All right, because although the parts all fit together in a great big, nice. I'm glad I'm not doing anything delicate now. Can't even move my hand without smashing the camera. This whole thing stands like 2 feet tall, right? But the parts all come apart so that you can use the model to replicate the entire Apollo mission, which is a kind of cool and weird thing. But they also stand alone, like the lunar module descent stage is standing alone right now. So in order for this to stand alone, since the heat shield is curved, it would rock, right? It'd be rocky. They put these little prongs on it. And I guess I am tempted to take them off, to make the model look a little bit more like the real thing, but I'm not. Most of this on the outside, this goes on top of that, and then there's another little cone that goes on top of that, and then some little appendages that attach. I don't know, some sort of antenna, are painted the kind of a pearlescent white, but the heat shield wasn't white, and so I'm going to pick another color just to differentiate it from the rest of the model. There's another example of why I finished the descent stage before the break, because it's like this, right? I'm just knocking stuff around. All right. So I'm going to move the camera back a little bit, because I'm going to be creating plastic dust, and it's just going to get everywhere. So these are big, heavy pieces of plastic that are left over from the trees where it was attached. And I cut it off, leaving plastic on there intentionally, because if I cracked it off, it would leave a divot in the model itself. So I leave extra plastic on, because at least in theory, if not always in practice, filing it and then sanding it down results in a model without divots. That is, it's possible to sand that down so it's just perfectly even with the rest of it. There's a lot of plastic there, so I'm going to get it close and then leave it. In the past, sometimes I'd file that all the way down, but the file leaves scratches. And the scratches aren't helpful. So the heat shield was not glossy like this. And what I might do, I'm going to paint this a matte color. But what I was thinking of doing was sanding the entire thing to give it just a little bit of a texture, other than the real bright glossiness like this. And I think I might just do that. It's not going to take very long, and it's the kind of thing I can do after break without messing things up very much. It's not likely I can mess it up too much just by sanding the surface. I'm not saying it's not possible to mess it up. It's definitely possible for me at any moment in any way, shape, or form to mess something up, but the odds are fairly small. There's just barely enough room. I need just be careful. I'll try to be careful not to push this box too far forward and knock it into the descent stage of the lunar module. Okay. My little sanding block. I haven't talked about anything other than building the model today, because it was just a lot of little things that were hard to do, getting those pieces together. Usually I would ramble on about Tom Terrific or the end of the television antenna industry or something. I didn't do that today. The closest I came to that was talking about the variable thrust rocket engine and what an incredible innovation that was. And how necessary it was to assure the safe landing on the moon. And a little bit about the calculus needed to calculate how long a rocket engine needed to fire in order to get the appropriate velocity. Look at that, there's a divot. Yeah, as I'm just looking at the surface, it's there's a little dot there. That's not, it's not smooth. And if I were doing a display model, something that looked perfect under magnification and bright light, I would have an appropriate filler and fill that in and sand it down so it would become invisible. But I don't have the appropriate filler, and what I do have isn't going to work there. So you just have to, it's just going to stay there. This may need a little bit of working around the edges later. This part fits inside of it. And then this part goes on top of it. And the seam is going to show because one is the heat shield and one isn't. Tabs and things on it that are supposed to make this line up. I guess there. It doesn't fit. And part of it is because there's some things in the way, but it doesn't even seem to be the same diameter. That is just so weird. Cementing this together is going to be a little bit of a challenge when the time comes, because they don't really, it doesn't really fit. Great. Not a surprise, but there it is. I want some fairly coarse sandpaper. I don't know if I've got any little coarse bits. Or I need to find some. Wow, look at all these little scraps of sandpaper. No, you're not looking at them because it's not on camera. There. Look at all these little bits of not wasting sandpaper. Use this one. I'm just going to rub it all over the whole thing to take the gloss off. If I want, after this is painted, this is supposed to be the heat shield, which is not glossy like the rest of it. In some ways, painting this is going to be a little bit easier than some of the other parts. The inside of this is painted a different color than the outside. This doesn't have to be painted on the bottom at all because it sits in here, so it's invisible. Okay. And then the rest of it painted what they call light blue. And I've got an appropriate color for that. And then these bits are like ventilation hoses and conduits for electrical supplies. So those are all painted different colors, as are some of these things. So there's a little bit of detail painting in here. These are the astronaut seats, which, they're pretty badly molded, but surprisingly, they're not too terribly different from the real thing. The picture I have of the inside of the capsule, which is down here, and I could show it sometime, probably will, as I move the construction of this part along, is they look like canvas stretched over an aluminum frame. You would think that they would have been like real comfy, cozy bucket seats in a high-end car or something, but no. They're just really kind of crappy looking. like a not very good hammock. Yeah, I think this is coming along okay. So I'm going to go on. I'm supposed to end at about 2. I'll see how this goes. If I can do terribly much damage. But if it begins to look like I'm doing damage, then I'm going to stop. What are those little protrusions? What's that all about anyway? I'm going to do this part next. This is supposed to fit inside of here. And it just doesn't look like it does. There's a notch here that matches up with that little prong. Okay? But then there's, I don't know, maybe there's just little spacers to keep it even. Yeah, I guess it fits in okay. I'll work on this. There are certain features of this that there's these circles, these molding circles that show up that have to be taken out because they're going to show, and they shouldn't show. They don't. These little circles did not exist on the real Apollo. So this is going to be a fair amount of sanding. I have to sand that whole surface down even with the bottom of the circle to make it disappear. And the same thing around here. I don't know if you can see them, but like there's one here, and there, and there, and there, and there. This was true of a submarine model when I built it too, is that for some reason, I don't know why, there must have been some reason, in the molding process, these little circles show up. And they're not features, they're just flaws. And they're sometimes they're just really obvious. And I have to get rid of them. I sanded out a lot of circles on the submarine bits, some of them. Sometimes it didn't work out all that well, because then I ended up with a uneven surface, kind of like a divot where I sanded out the circles. If the circles are raised above the surface, that's not a real issue because I can just sand them down. But these are indented into the surface. So the whole surface has to be sanded down to the same level as the bottom of the circle in order to make the circle no longer visible. Or if that was a feature or a flaw. A flaw. Again, I'm filing these down until they're almost but not quite gone, and then use sandpaper to finish the removal so that I don't get file scratches in the plastic and then have to spend a whole lot of time with sandpaper sanding out the file marks. I discovered that the hard way when I just used a file and then painted it and then saw the file marks after I painted it, which then meant that I had to sand off the paint as well as the file marks and then do the whole thing over again. So those of you at home who are not master modelers and probably never will be, but like to have something that looks pretty good, yeah, you want to avoid having divots in your plastic because it becomes difficult to fill in an effective way. And then when you're removing the parts, the excess plastic, you can use a file or coarse sandpaper until you get down close to the surface, and then use finer sandpaper so you don't leave scratch marks on everything. And then what I usually do after that, after I use like a 600 grit to do the final removal, you can use a 4 if you need to. If there's a lot that has to be removed, I usually go over it with like a 1200 grit just to, because that spot will show, look at that. I think that's going to show, but it's just another flaw, not a feature. So you can't really see it. I can see it. It's like a little indentation there of where the plastic didn't quite fill the mold. And I'm going to be spending a lot of time getting rid of these circles, especially on this one, because it's a big surface and that circle is pretty deep. Really, really annoying. I said this before, and I'll keep saying it over and over again. I'm probably spending at least 75% of the time on this model doing this. You know, I mean, before the break today, I assembled the bits of the descent stage, which was exciting because they were all very fragile parts that could have broken pretty easily and would have been a disaster. Hardly any time painting, but this is taking, like I said, at least 75% of the time on this model has just been doing this kind of thing. Just cleaning up parts. And you wouldn't really know it otherwise, but if I wasn't doing this, all of these bumps, the little bits of flashing circles that shouldn't be there, after it was painted, no matter how well I assembled it, if I did an A+ job instead of like a B+ job like I did there, maybe even an A-, I think that came out like A-. I think I hit the A- territory on the descent stage. Even if I did an A+ assembly job, I'd have like a C or a C- in terms of looks, because all these flaws would show up. And after it's painted, especially if it's a metallic like that, it's they become even more obvious. So I'm guessing that people who do the modeling for a living and make A+ models all the time probably do this kind of thing constantly. Because they find that the plastic models that they get just are very poorly made. I know that people who are very serious about their models, even there's aftermarket parts, especially for like airplanes. You know, a common one is metal landing gear struts, because the landing gear that come with model planes are like the ones for the lunar module there. They're just tiny little sticks of plastic that are actually quite fragile. And you wonder how they support the weight of the model, and sometimes they don't. So they make them out of metal. You pull out your CA glue and then they support the weight of the model. So that's a good aftermarket. Sometimes it's little things, you know, like the cowling. You buy a model kit and it's becomes clear that the cowling on the engines, the piston engine, right, because it's a model of like a World War II plane, is not, there might have been like 3 or 4 iterations of that plane. You know, so the cowling that came with the model might be like the B variant, but you want your model to look exactly like a specific plane in a specific fighter group or something. And it was a D model, and so the engine cowling had changed. And you can buy those as aftermarkets. It's really pretty amazing that modelers, you know, really serious modelers, the effort they go through to make their models look accurate. This model has no, I mean, it would take incredible modifications to make this model historically accurate. It is in many ways an impression of the actual Apollo components. I'm guessing that I don't know, even the escape tower probably isn't that accurate. But when I compared the model to, you know, pictures of the real thing, it's recognizable as an attempt to be that thing. But it's not. So I'm building this with the knowledge that what I'm not building is an exact model of the Apollo, but rather kind of a representation of it. Let's see, this is going to sit inside here. I think I've cleaned it up enough so I can see how it fits. Yeah, so this will go in like this. And it looks like it kind of, it's even all the way around. Oh, I see. Those little tabs are to keep it in place. Got it. Okay. Well, as I ran my finger over it, I saw another spot. There's a little piece of, just a lump there. Why is there a lump of plastic there? Why not? Just like there's plenty of astronaut suits around, you know, at the Smithsonian. You have Armstrong's suit there. So when they made the model of, oh, hi, Who. Yeah, I haven't done a flip yet. I will now that you've joined in. So when they made the model of the walking on the moon astronaut, you know, the one that I showed earlier in the stream, it's like, why didn't they make the suit look like the real thing? You know, is it copyrighted or something? But that, I found that to be kind of annoying. That something like that if they're going to make a model of the walking on the moon figure, at least get the suit right, which would be really easy to do because the suit is right there in the Smithsonian. Just take some pictures. Mm-hmm. Is NASA prohibiting you from doing that? Pretty invisible now. Yeah, I need to sand the tops of these and here and here. I'm going to be spending a good long time getting rid of circles now. I think I'm even going to move this box out of the way so that I can sit this down and grind away at it. But first, a flip. Oh, here. Who hasn't seen this? Look. I got all the little legs to work, and they actually do fold up, and they didn't break. It's the descent stage is now done. So I have completed yet another component of the model. And I didn't break anything yet. Let's do a sear flip. Yay. Three, 4, 5, 6. Yay. Okay, I did that. I'm going to need some fairly coarse sandpaper because there's a lot of material to take off here. I'm going to get some heftier grit, sand away at it, and then get these lighter grits, these finer grits, to polish them when it's done. So I need to find the sandpaper. $400, $800, that later. I think that's as far as I want to go. This is 150. That would tear it up really fast. I don't think I need to do that. So I have to use these little bitty scissors again. I did. I mean, it's amazing that is actually finished and hasn't broken. And as I told everybody, it'll now be going into a box and carefully wrapped in paper towel or tissue, and never revealed again. Oh, should I do the hard one first? Maybe this one. This one, the whole surface needs to be sanded down to the level of the bottom of that circle. Otherwise, it'll just be uneven. So hopefully there's a lot of plastic there. And I will be, and of course let's do it like this. This will probably take forever. Or maybe not, I don't know. You can see the circle now a little bit better there. Now that it's got sanding dust in it. So you can see how that would be a serious distraction. And I could just sand down that corner, but then the whole thing would be uneven. So the rest of this isn't going to, that'll probably be a little uneven. But the rest of this will be pretty even. But this is the kind of thing that's just really annoying. So the next model I'm going to build is going to be the Savoia, the Porco Rosso's plane. And I'm really hoping that there aren't circles all over the place on that. Because the whole plane is painted glossy red. And it just makes surface preparations so much more important than this, which is going to end up being painted kind of is flat, actually flat blue. If it's real, that thing is really down in there deep. I found sometimes that that circle is so embedded in the plastic. And it's not like embedded, but it just extends down into the plastic so far that even doing this isn't enough to make it completely disappear. But eventually, sometimes what I find, I look at this and I can't feel it, and I prime it with a flat white primer and can't see it, and then the final coat goes on and oops, there it is again. Fortunately, the plastic was thick enough. Well, of course it was, because couldn't see the hole didn't poke through it. I don't know if you can tell now, but the circle is gone. At least I can't see it anymore. I'm kind of tempted to just leave the surface with this texture. I'm not going to polish it. Maybe I will a little bit. There's some scratch marks, maybe. And I might take like an 800 grit and just go over it a little bit. Okay. This. So I'm doing this. Why don't I talk about Dyson Dungeons? Since I haven't done that yet. Dyson Dungeons is a group of family and friends. And our main purpose is to put on a Dungeons and Dragons show, and it's really good. I have to say, I'm not saying that just because I'm in it, I'm not the best part of the show. The DM actually is the best part of the show. But we all play our parts. And it streams on Twitch with a live chat 3 Sundays a month at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. Currently it's daylight saving time. And will sooner or later become standard time again, but 2 p.m. And prior episodes are available on YouTube and as a podcast. And that would be a good way to catch up with the show, is to, watch 1 or 2 of those things on YouTube and see if you like it. And you should, because it's wonderful. It's a really good show. But that's what Dyson Dungeons is all about. So you'd say, well, why, what's going on with this? Why are we watching somebody building an Apollo model? Well, the answer to that is that we make our own dungeon tiles. And I'll probably show you some. I think I show some almost every stream on these PLA printers behind me. Make our own dungeon tiles for use in the show. And those were then, after they were printed, painted, hand painted, so that they would look like wood or stone or cut stone or rough stone or polished wood. Even have little bits like crates and barrels and tents and stuff like that, campfires, but mainly the dungeon tiles. And our DM said, well, if you're going to be painting them, why don't we put a camera on you? So there's a camera over there, And then there's this Ring camera. And that didn't cost us much extra because they were just things that we weren't using for the show in the studio. It's a microphone that you can't see over there. That's kind of surplus as well. So it was this is a very low cost production. Say that because it's basically surplus. I got the best. Anyway, it was, if you're painting this, let's stream the painting. So if you look at old YouTubes of relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons, there was in fact a lot of painting. Dungeon tile painting, minifig painting, all of that sort of thing. And then it feels like forever ago, and it probably was like a year and a half ago or so, ran out of dungeon tiles and minifigs, and it was, well, let's keep the painting stream going. Why not? Why don't you build some of these models that you've got laying around the basement? And the story there that I've told every time is the same. When I retired, I thought I would be bored, and so I started buying a whole lot of model kits so that I could build models like I did when I was like in 7th and 8th and 9th grade when I was bored. Especially in the summer when I didn't have school or driver's ed or anything like that. And so that's how this got started, is building a model. And it was initially only on Wednesdays. It was known as Submarine Wednesday because I was building a Renwall kind of cutaway Polaris launching nuclear submarine. Oh, that divot is really deep. I thought I had it out, but I haven't. So that was Submarine Wednesday, and then there wasn't anything to do on Mondays and Fridays, and it just became all the time. And after I finished the submarine, had a contest among a tiny subset of the models that I've got here. Included things like the command deck of the original Enterprise. That's kind of a fun model. Comes complete with figurines of Kirk and Spock. And I had a Lotus Ford, the one that won the Indy 500 back in 1965. I got to see that race on closed circuit television. That was a big deal. You could buy tickets to go to the arena, and they would project the race onto a movie screen, basically. Anyway, that was one of the models. This was one of the models in the Savoia. Porco Rosso's plane was one of the models. This one won. So I've been spending forever. Well, this has been taking a long time because I've been gone a lot. But probably I've been working on this the equivalent of half-time since the beginning of the year, with sundry trips and family obligations and stuff. But now progress is coming along, and if I can get these parts to work, you will see some very not relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons relatively soon, as I will make an effort to paint the control panel for the command module. Anyway, that's what this has to do with Dyson Dungeons. And Dyson Dungeons is really Dungeons and Dragons and not an Apollo model. But this stream has turned into that. I'm going to guess that this, the prep for these, prepping these pieces will probably take the rest of this week. and then I'll prime them and begin painting. And, some of the painting will be kind of interesting. Like this, this whole thing gets painted light blue, and then these conduits get painted like a dark aluminium or something. And each of these boxes, I might paint something other than the blue as well. So that'll be, it'll be some painting. Actually, well, it'll be some painting. I'll make some decisions about colors based on the painting directions and the colors I have and what kind of, and how much they're going to show. A lot of it will depend on. I'm supposed to wear these pants to the dentist later today. Guess not. They're all covered with plastic dust now. Yeah, I get to go to the dentist. Yay. I guess I shouldn't complain too much about doing all the sanding because compared to going to the dentist, this is relaxing. After I'm done sanding out these divots, these circles, and then going over these with a little bit finer grained paper just so that it's kind of, it's got a matte finish now, but it's probably got scratches. Try to get it just polished a little bit. This one's saving this one for last might not have been a good idea. It's really down in there deep. When I looked at it at first, it looked like most of it was actually above the surface, but it's not. It's down in there. Yeah, so after I'm done with this part here, I'm going to show some dungeon tiles. So what was I talking about before I went on vacation? It wasn't vacation. Why did I say that before I went on the last trip, which was actually a working trip? There was a day and a half of that trip where I wasn't lifting and hauling stuff. And you might say, why is someone of your age lifting and hauling stuff? And I might say, yeah, why? What's up with that? But I was. And if you say, gee, do you get like muscle soreness and stuff after lifting and hauling stuff? And the answer to that is yes. Yes, I do. At least these are raised flat surfaces. Sometimes these circles and some of the others parts have circles. Sometimes they're just in places that are really hard to reach. And so getting rid of them is even more of a challenge than this. This wasn't challenging as much as it was just like, let's use the word tedious. That's an accurate representation of what this is. It's tedious. Some like 800 grit here. I'm just going to go over these with this. Try to get rid of scratch marks. It's still going to be a matte finish, but it won't look all scratchy. Again, as I said, I've discovered that in the past. What's Yeah, and then you get, oh, look at that. They're not gone. So as I got rid of the sanding dust, this one's okay. These other two have tiny, tiny little spots yet. Is that worth? Is it worth the effort taking those out or not? I'll come back and look after I see how these look. That's another thing that happens is, oh, that looks just fine. And then the next step happens, and then, oh, that doesn't look that good at all. Yeah, see this one? It's like pinhead sized. The remnant of the circle. It's really hard to see. I think that's okay. Those are pretty obvious, though. I'm going to have to flail away at those for a while yet. Yay. Yeah. I thought it was closer to being done than I am. It left there. No. Let me go back to the heavy duty grit. Yes, I got a new piece since I lost the old one. And yeah, this needs some additional sanding. As do those two guys. Well, I was further along. I thought I was further along than I ended up being. Oh, there's a lot of little plastic dust here. So one thing I can say is that at least the plastic is fairly soft. And although I could be more aggressive with the sandpaper than I am, it moves along pretty quickly. Don't want to end up using sandpaper that just sometimes it just ends up being more work because the coarser grit leaves deeper scratches, and then it has to be sanded like twice over with an intermediate grit and a fine grit. And I can end up taking longer than just using an intermediate grit to begin with. Use this, where it was I was using before. Let's see if the little dots are gone. Yeah, that one's okay. Still has a little remnant. Just enough to be annoying. One of these days I'm going to just like sand right through and then there'll be a hole. Today is not that day, fortunately, so far at least. Well, that was worth the effort because they're gone now. Let's see how this one looks. Yeah, there's still just enough time to show off some dungeon tiles. This is going to have to receive some serious cleaning before it's painted. Okay, I'm just going to blow all of that dust onto the floor. Yep, so the circles that marred these surfaces are now gone. What's up with this? Sort of weird inconsistency there. I thought I was done, but no. On further inspection, I found additional problems. This should come out quickly. It's, I think, a raised surface. Well, I'm hoping that all this surface prep pays off. I'm not even sure if these parts are going to be visible when the model's put together. It looks like, the model maker thought it was important because all these conduits and stuff are put in here. No. Holes are, control panel goes here. So you're going to be able to actually see this. The astronauts' couches are actually suspended above this level. So when you look through the hatch and the windows, you can see down underneath their couches and see these conduits and boxes. And if I recall correctly, this is like a storage area. So they could actually come out of their couches and go through this very claustrophobic little passageway and get down underneath their seats into this area down here. So here we go. These two parts are done. Now the rest of these parts, including the little ones, maybe I should even put it on camera. These two parts are ready to be cleaned up and primed. And then probably, I don't know, it might be interesting to oh no, this is suspended on parts of the control panel. I don't know. We'll see. I might continue. Probably on Wednesday, I'm going to come back. I'm just going to spend the entire stream sanding and filing and sanding, test fitting parts, that sort of thing. And then if it gets that far along, I can spend Wednesday afternoon and Thursday. I'll prime them and might even do some painting. Like the inside of this is painted light blue and the outside a different color. Okay. And this is, I can actually put the windows in after it's painted instead of like the lunar module where I had to cement all these parts together before they could be painted, and putting the windows on was a really delicate thing. Those had to be put into the front, taped, held in place. Anyway, it was, you should just watch the YouTube versions of it. But in this case, I can paint the inside and the outside both, and put the windows in, which is a good thing, because it's not that much fun to do that. Okay, well, on Wednesday I'm going to be doing some more filing and sanding of the parts of the command module. I'm going to push this stuff aside, pretending I'm cleaning up. No, I'm not. I'm going to put these into place. I'm going to put them over here, out of the way, and bring in some dungeon tiles and show them to you real quickly before I finish. To do an ad. If you'd like, please become a follower. Whatever it is on YouTube, sponsor, I think it is. And you can always go to patreon.com/diceanddungeons, patreon.com/diceanddungeons, become a patron, and you get to see our improv warm-up sessions or our D&D sessions, and lately, hot takes from cold reads, during which we ask one of the AIs, Copilot, I think that's the one. I'm not really sure. I don't pay attention to that. One of the AIs prompted to tell us something that's related to our Midnight Brunch D&D campaign group, and it usually comes up with something that is incredibly boring and derivative, or sometimes just bizarre. Like it created a whole new character for us. It just made it up. Made up a whole new character for our group. And every time we ask it to do something now, because it made the character up, it's now in its database for Dice and Dungeons Midnight Brunch Adventure Party, and it just keeps doing it. It's just so weird. Anyway, this is the kind of dungeon tile we make. They are printed on the PLA printer back there, and it does an amazing job of doing the vertical and the horizontal both. This wall is built right in. It's one solid piece. And that's the kind of painting that we do. This thing is primed and then base coated in a brown, a very dull kind of yucky brown, but then it's washed with a really nice sort of reddish brown wash that brings out the grain pattern and gives it the look of aged oak. And then we painted the stucco as a detail. So, you know, it was like a 1, 2, 3, 4-step process involving some, you know, care with a small brush to make sure that those were done. The cool part is that under these plates are ball magnets, and the ball magnets stick to each other. See, it's just like magic. The tiles stick to each other. And so it's really easy to take them apart and reconfigure them however one wants. In most of our tiles, we have corners, plain floor tiles, inside corners, doors, working doors, painting of the detail of the metal strap and the door handle and stuff. Back in the day when there was relaxing painting going on, that kind of thing. Yeah, used to think that painting that kind of detail was actually, you know, kind of a cool thing, but as it turned out, compared to minifigs or even some of the components of the submarine, that was fairly coarse. This is just an example of the rough stone. Same sort of deal. Ball magnets, just a different paint scheme. The way these work is that they're painted... They're primed, and then the base coat of gray goes on the whole thing, and then the accent blocks are painted in one at a time, and then the whole thing is usually washed in a dark gray wash to make it look weathered. These just weren't washed. So those are our dungeon tiles, and that's how this stream started, with the hand painting of these kinds of things that are used in our Dungeons and Dragons show. So, yeah, I'll set these aside. These are specialty tiles. Show these off. This features in one kind of our dungeon. It's a fire, like a fire sorcerer, a mage or something. So this sigil is actually printed on, and then the detail is painted on. The color scheme for this, I think I made the color scheme up. It's really pretty cool. You know, it's brass flat black, scarlet red, and then that's actually copper. So there's 3 of these in the set, and this one is a cool tile. It looks like a regular dungeon tile, but as you walk through, if you don't check for traps, it turns, and that is a little magnet, and that plate, you'll either shoot out like a flame or maybe a gas cloud if you trigger the trap. But what's cool about this is that if depending on how the dungeon is set up and the perspective that the players have, as well as the viewers on camera, it looks just like any of the other tiles until the trap is actually sprung, and then it comes across, and then it says, "Oh no, it's a trap! Oh, you didn't react in time. You failed your dexterity saving throw, and the flame hits you for, flame damage." Anyway, and then there's other cool things as well, but that I just wanted to show these off, as I do at least once every stream, to explain how relaxing painting got started and also what Dice and Dungeons is all about. So I'm going to be ending the stream, and I want to thank you for all joining in. On Wednesday, it will be Apollo Filing and Sanding Wednesday, as I continue to prep the pieces for the command module, get them ready. I'll see how far I get on Wednesday, and then I'll decide whether to do some priming and maybe some painting on Friday. And then the control panels that's just going to be a whole story in and of itself. So I might get everything else done except for the control panels. I might, just so I can show progress. I want to show progress. Yay. Thanks, everybody. Hopefully see you on Wednesday at more or less 10. And let's celebrate the conclusion of the Apollo descent stage. Yay. Thanks. See you Wednesday.